them in your home or love to see them in theirs. These are the creatures that bring us all together.
Reptiles. We're going to be delving into the experiences of reptile lovers from around the block and around the world. This is the Reptile Talk Podcast. What's up, everybody? This is Jeremy Turgeon from Brassman Reptiles.
And I'm Rob, and I'm creeping it real.
So this is episode 21.
Boom.
What's the joke, Rob?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I thought I could get him to say it. But, nope, you're not even going to know what the hell we're talking about now. That's cool. Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. I like inside jokes that are not for the outside.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Anyway, episode 21, have a super awesome guest.
Yes, I'm very excited to have this person on. We got Dan Rowe from Rowe Reptiles. How you doing tonight, man?
Woo! I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
We are excited to have you on. And so, Dan, for those of the people who don't know you, have you been a lifelong reptile lover, or were you someone who got into it when you were older?
Sure. So I've been lifelong, for sure.
Always into reptiles, and you're a kid, you're catching frogs and king cobras and stuff?
Exactly. I'll say there's two pivot points. One was I was an outdoor kid, so as long as the sun was up, I was outside in the woods catching frogs, flipping boards, garter snakes, etc. And then as I got a little older, started having pets. But my dad was Navy, so we were traveling all the time, and we had to have a pet that was in a cage. And so after like 5 or 6 hamsters, and being traveled all around the country and the world. Finally decided to get a lizard. My parents being by master's degree, whatever, they're librarians, and so essentially I had to write a thesis paper on how I was going to take care of this lizard.
Oh boy!
And so I finally 6 months later, it gets sick, right? And I take it to the vet, and the vet's like, "Why are you bringing a lizard here? We don't do lizards." Shocked and appalled, and so at that point was I'm gonna go get my I'm gonna go be a vet that takes care of lizards, and through college biology degree. I was the opposite kind of person. I was biology degree, and I took computer science to boost my GPA. I don't know what works, but my head goes that way. But then, like, as I'm looking for vet schools, they're like, "Oh, here's this like stack of books you'll use, and here's this like half a chapter on reptiles that we'll talk about." And I'm like, that's not for me. And at that point, I had a bunch of like breeder friends and things like that, so I skipped out on vet school. I didn't go. I got my degree in biology, minored in computer science, and computers pays for most people. It pays a lot better than reptiles, so it
Fair
let me
enough.
bring the hobby home. Yep.
For real, though.
Yeah. Oh, if only I could learn computers.
Yeah. I'm kind of kicking myself for not learning computers better, because I was actually pretty good at it when I was younger, doing HTML on MySpace and shit. And like,
right.
If I had focused on it, I could be making some good money right now.
Yeah. But instead,
I clean snake poop.
we clean snake poop. But we love it.
Yeah.
We do.
So what type of lizard did you have when you were younger?
Sure, it was Jack and Jill, a pair of wild-caught brown basilisks.
Oh, that's very cool.
That's interesting. Not what I would have expected for a first lizard.
Yeah.
And that's an even a weird one, because like, even if you were a vet who had been like, I'm a little interested in reptiles, let me learn about the basics of reptiles, you probably would have learned about like ball pythons, you would have learned about green iguanas, you would have learned about like leopard geckos and bearded dragons, and that probably would have been it. So you bring in a brown basilisk, and they're going to be like, what the hell kind of iguana is that?
Yeah. So what was the thought process behind the brown basilisk? Was it just like, oh, this is a cool looking lizard, or was it like the only thing they had at the pet store?
It was essentially the only thing at the pet store, other than bunny rabbits, I think, at the time.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, pet stores gotta up your reptile selection, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, back then, there wasn't a whole lot. At least in, we were in Newport, Middletown, Rhode Island area, so not the most exotic pet type of area anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I was so lucky when I was growing up, because I grew up like 20 minutes maybe from Greg Mertz, the Odd Pet Vet,
Mm-hmm.
and
Nice.
he was like my go-to guy, and I was always very impressed with him. Even when I started getting into like weirder reptiles, he always knew what I was bringing in. Because there was like one time where I was like, maybe I'll go see another vet that says that they do reptiles, and I brought my Solomon Island ground boa that hadn't been eating for a couple months. And I brought it in, and I open up the bag and take it out, and the vet goes, "Oh, so what kind of snake is this?" And I was like, "Okay, if you don't know what kind of snake it is, you're not going to help me right now."
You're like, check please.
Yep,
Oh.
I will. I'll be done. It's gonna cost. It cost me $60 to walk in the door for me to tell you don't know anything. Great, that's
Yep.
awesome. But anytime I brought Greg stuff, he always knew exactly what I was doing. So I was very grateful to have an exotics vet. In the area when I was growing up, especially because the first time that I like met him was when I brought him my Jackson's chameleon. My first pet reptile was a Jackson's chameleon, and I had it for a couple of years, and then it ended up getting an eye infection. And I brought it to him, and at the time in Massachusetts, chameleons were illegal. I bought it when I was in Connecticut on vacation with my family, and like my family had bought it as our pet. And then we brought it back. We had it for like 2 or 3 years before we realized that it was illegal. So we brought it into him, and we're like, "Look, we have this chameleon," and he's like, "Look, I'm not going to report you, but chameleons are illegal in Massachusetts, so you should try to get a permit for it." And so he really helped us out, and he like showed us the right way to go to get a permit and all that sort of stuff. But I was like very, very lucky to have had like an actual exotics vet very close to me who I could reference if I ever needed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one in Western Mass. Forgetting the name of the clinic he worked at, but his name was Dr. Krauser, and I didn't ever really need to take too many animals to the vet, thank God.
Yeah.
But whenever I did, like, he was always the name that would get recommended. So he finally like go to see. I think it was for like the first time I had a ball python not eat for many months, and was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And he was basically like, well, yeah, well, we'll take a look at him. Some, it could be a bunch of different things, but looked at him. He's like, it's perfectly healthy. What sex is it?
Yep.
And he's like, it's a male. He's like, oh yeah, this is fine.
That's fine. It happens. Yep. That same thing happened to me, dude. My first ball python. I've had him now for 17 years, and he's like 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he went for 11 and a half months without eating once. And like the first 4 months, I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. And then as soon as he hit like 7 or 8 months, I was like, I don't think something's okay right now.
Yeah, something's not right. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, no, I remember that because I remember like he did like a fecal sample, like just to be
all the things,
sure,
just
whatever.
to be thorough. Yep.
And as soon as like he got all of that information, he was like, oh, to hell with
Damn
the
it,
fecal.
it's a male.
It's a male. Yeah,
God,
exactly. This is
he'll
a
eat when
boy.
he's ready.
Yeah, exactly. And like oddly enough, like the next day,
Yep.
it ate. I was like,
Ah.
after getting poked and prodded, motherfucker, that's when you decided to go and eat. It's weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh boy.
Yeah, I just feel like I was super lucky to have that. And then, I thought about doing like some sort of vet program, but after talking to some people who do veterinary school, they're like, it's harder to get into the medical school, and it's very grueling, and it's very unrewarding because you usually see things when everything's bad for people, and you never see people who are happy to see you, and it's like, oh, that sounds like a terrible job. Why would I want to do that? Like, I love reptiles.
I'd much rather want to be hanging out with healthy animals versus sick ones all day. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
for
and
sure.
get people who come in and they don't realize that that something's wrong. I can't tell you how many times that we've had animals brought to Nerd, and people are like, oh, my kid, he takes great care of it, and they bring it in, and it's this leopard gecko that's like almost folded in half because it's got MBD so bad, and it's like, how do you not know that that's not a healthy animal? I don't understand. It's like, it's bad enough seeing that stuff without having to have that be your job to always take that in,
Yeah.
Like, because I've talked to Greg a bunch of times, and he's like, it's a good job, I love it, but it's very exhausting because people don't see you when, most people don't bring their reptile to a vet when it's healthy. They bring it when it's not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to say, like, a lot of times, like, wildlife rehabbers who work with reptiles and stuff, like, people would, like, bring them things that get hit or, like, you hear,
Yeah.
like, whatever. And they always have, like, these grandiose ideas of people
Of
who
what
keep
rescue,
reptiles and, like, what it should be. And I'm like, you can't base your opinion as an outsider
Yeah.
looking at that and be like, yes, this is terrible. It's like, their job is to see the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
You know,
They signed up for that day
whatever.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They signed up for it. Yeah, exactly. But, yeah. Oof.
Yeah, it's like those people self-select, but then I've got like that leopard gecko guy who comes into our store and he loves freaking leopard geckos, and he was concerned because after his leopard geckos had bred, his females had dropped a little bit of weight, and he called me and he's like super concerned. He's like, dude, my leopard gecko, I think it's dying. It's lost so much weight. I'm very concerned. And I'm like, dude, bring it in today. Like, I'll stay late. I don't care. Bring it in. I'll take a look at it. If there's anything I can do to help you, I'll help you out. And he brings in the leopard gecko. He's like, I don't even want to show it to you, dude. It's so bad. And he brings it out in this like 6-inch deli, and the thing takes up the whole deli container. I was like, that's a giant leopard gecko. Holy shit. He's like, it's not bad. I was like, that thing's like twice the size of every leopard gecko that we have in our store.
Yeah,
what
right.
do you mean? That thing's a giant. And he's like concerned because he had them like so primed for breeding that they were so big. When they dropped some of that weight when they laid eggs, he just hadn't seen it. An animal drop weight like that so quickly, so he was like freaked out. And then now he's just like, dude, my leopard geckos, I had to put them on a diet. You were right, they were a little big. But it's just it's interesting because we see both sides of it, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so wild to see like all the different aspects of keeping. I did a private tour for some people today. And the mother who had brought the daughter there, the daughter has a leopard gecko, and she's really into reptiles and everything. And the mother and the grandmother had come with them. And when we get into not the leopard gecko room, when they get into the reticulated python room, she's like, oh, man, people must get these all the time and then dump them. And I'm like, nope. You know what? I hardly ever get reticulated pythons dropped off at our store.
That's
in the
true.
entire time that I've like been working at Nerd Hole full time, so the last 4.5 years, I've had maybe 6 reticulated pythons dropped off here. Like maybe 6. I feel like it's closer to 4 animals. I can probably count and recall each one that was dropped off at our store. Mm-hmm. I have had over 100 leopard geckos dropped off at the store, and like little ball pythons and like stuff like that. It's hardly ever the big stuff that gets dropped off at our store. It's always like the little tiny things, which is like crazy to think about.
I feel like in that instance, it's just because those bigger animals, like, I feel like those people probably did do that extra level of research, or they got it and they were like, man, like, this thing is badass. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I want to make sure I give it the best life.
Yeah, and I told him, I was like, look, we charge more than a lot of people do for reticulated pythons. Like, you can probably go on Morph Market maybe and find, like, a $75 normal reticulated python. Maybe even cheaper than that. Especially at a reptile expo. I've seen reticulated pythons for $50, like, before. Yeah. And so people will buy that on an impulse because $50 is, you know, that's lunch. I bought dinner. I got a nice fancy dinner and it's $50. Yeah. It's not a big deal. But we start our normal reticulated pythons at like $150, $200. So people who are willing to invest that little bit more money are not always, I mean, there are some people who are willing to throw $200 down like it's nothing. Yeah. But the amount of people who are willing to spend $50 versus the amount of people who are willing to spend $200 or, you know, or $150 is like a vastly different group of people. True. So most people who are willing to spend a little bit more of that money, they think about it when they're talking about caging and all that sort of stuff.
For sure.
Speaking of caging,
yes,
I've seen photos of some of Dan's enclosures.
Goodness.
And dude,
so nice.
Your enclosures are some of the coolest. Like, I forgot what the first photo was that I saw. One of your monitors, and I was like, oh my god, that enclosure looks like so clean, so like pristine. I was like, I don't even feel like I should look at it. I feel like I'm making it dirty by looking at it in a picture.
And to keep water monitors in it, they're like the most disrespectful reptile. They're like, let me lift my tail and poop across the wall. I know you made this nice area for me to go to the bathroom, but I'd like to poop here instead.
For sure. Yeah. So when we when we moved to this house, we built the reptile building kind of next to the house, and my wife, while she's not isn't doing cleaning and all that with the animals, she appreciates that it's my passion, and so she kind of lets me do my thing. But she's has a very modern style, and so she's like, if we're gonna make a reptile building, it's got to be pretty. And so, you know, the monitor, you know, we've got walk-in you know, 6 foot, 10 foot monitor cages with kind of the steam shower glass doors with the chrome and the.
Yeah.
So it's a little fancy for a reptile building, but if it made her happy and I could get my reptile building, then it was a small price to pay.
Yeah. Oh man, dude.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, most guys are like, "Oh, well, I bought like another snake, and she's kind of pissed off right now." He's like, "I'm gonna build a building for this reptile." So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that started like the day I met her, right? So or maybe the first week or so. You know, we were talking, and you know, I'm doing the whole like, well, what I want to do in the, you know, quote unquote, when I grow up, because I met her at orientation of college, was you know, I'm gonna, you know, get a job and I'm gonna have a reptile building. That's my dream. You know, I have the like kindergarten sketch of my house with the reptiles and the ball pit, and you know,
That's awesome.
I don't have a ball pit yet, but I got the reptile building. And so I knew, you know, since the day I met her, that I was gonna do this, and you know, I think when we started digging the foundation, it started getting real for her. So, but you know, she's been very accepting of it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's when you're like, it was in the picture.
Yeah, and
it was in
you
the
signed up.
picture.
Just remember, this was day one. You agreed from day one.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think I gotta wait for one of the kids to move out before I can take over their room for a ball pit, though.
That's a fair trade-off.
Yo, for the summertime, you could literally just get an inflatable pool and
That's
fill
true.
the balls. I'm just
That's
saying.
true. The seasonal ball
saying.
pit. Yeah.
All right. Well, when this Corona thing's over, I'll have you guys over for a ball pit party.
Hell yeah.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
That's
god, I can't
amazing.
even think about like what Chuck E. Cheese has got to be ruined with COVID.
Oh yeah.
Chuck E.
places
Cheese
like
has
that,
had like 1 inch of slime on everything.
Oh god.
Yeah, but if you went to Chuck E. Cheese, you're immune to everything, right?
That's probably
That's
very
why I
true.
haven't got COVID, because I grew up going to Chuck E.
Chuck E.
Cheese.
Cheese. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Never
Oof.
mind
We've
social
got our
distancing.
protective coating.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I've got my protective slime. I'm like a fish. I'm not going to get the COVID slime because I've got my Chuck E. Cheese slime.
No, you'll just get the ick.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. It's a thing, right?
Is it though?
So, Dan, you've got some really amazing animals. You got some focus with your monitors. You've got some carpet pythons and some other animals.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is your favorite animal you work with at your facility?
Favorite animal?
Your favorite type?
All of them. I wouldn't have them if I didn't like them.
True.
So I can go through the list though. I think monitor-wise, Sunny is like my pride and joy. He's our adult male sulfur. That's, you know, you can let the kids play with him. My daughter walks him on a little pink leash. Like, he's just awesome sweetheart. And then, you know, on the monitor, if we stick with the monitors, you know, we've got the bells and laces and stuff like that, and those are awesome. But, you know, Varanus, Gill, and they don't get enough attention. I think there's like the best little pocket monitors ever. I wish more people would breed them and keep them. They're, you know, better than Ackies. If you go to snakes, yeah, you said carpets. We've got a bunch of different carpets, but Brettles, Brettelii, Centrillion, whatever you want to call them, those are definitely my favorites of the carpet species.
Yes.
We've got the you know, strawberry is a normal het for nothing. That's my favorite, but we've got the hypos and the stripes and the other stuff. As far as that, and then stonewash, if that's actually a thing, I think it is, but I can't tell.
It's a thing. It's a thing. I've spent enough time on the phone with Nick Mutton to know it's definitely a thing.
Oh boy.
I know. I spent the time with Nick as well, and that's where my stonewashes are from. So
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
What's it for colubrids? White-sided black rat snakes. Big fan of those. We've got adults, and we've been breeding those successfully, so that's going well. I guess the latest in colubrids has been king rats, primarily for the feistiness. They keep you on your toes, at least the ones we've got.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then on the lizards, other lizards, I guess. So we've got a bunch of different arid, semi-arid species, like a bunch of different Uromastics, like Thomasii and stuff like that. And then Agurnia, you know, Hosmeri, Soxie, Cumminghamii, all of those are awesome. I know, Rob, you're not the biggest fan, but we've got a fairly good-sized group of cataphractus, which I think are awesome.
Yeah.
the armadillo girdled lizards.
I just get a lot of calls for people who are like, my 5-year-old Googled armadillo lizard and I want to buy one, and I'm like, do you have 10 grand laying around? Because you're not buying one right now.
Yeah, no.
I think they're interesting. It's just that I get a lot of phone calls about those, and I'm like, I don't have any. I haven't had any. You're not gonna find any.
Yeah.
But people like they Google. They're like, I'm in New England. I'm looking for a reptile. Oh, I'll call New England Reptile, and I'm like, yeah. I can't help you. That's like I had someone call the other day, or downstairs had someone call the other day in Zoo Creatures, and they asked, they were like, if you guys get rubber boas in, can you like call me and let me know? And I just wrote on the note, haha, good luck. And I was like, I know 100 people who are looking for rubber boas right now. If they become available, they're not probably going to be going to you.
Yeah, no, that's quite true, yeah. Dude, they used to be fairly...
I don't ever remember seeing them. I remember seeing like sun gazers. I remember seeing the armadillo lizards quite regularly at expos and stuff. I don't ever remember seeing rubber boas. I remember seeing Calabar burrowing pythons like it was nothing, $15 or something.
I remember, I think I must have been like maybe 18 or 19, but there was like a good year and a half where I remember seeing rubber boas. Not like in numbers,
but like
I would see consistent ads throughout the year and a half, and I would just be like, I don't know, they didn't really do anything for me. Yeah. And then now you can't find them at all, and I'm like, huh, for those rubber boas, those could
Jeremy,
be cool.
See, my biggest thing for a long time has been, it looks like a poop snake. It looks like a pile of poop. It's not like, anytime I saw rubber boas, anytime I saw Calabar burrowing pythons, I was like, it's a poop snake. It looks like a little tight coiled
poop emoji.
Yeah, it looks like a little poop emoji, and I was like, I don't really want that. I'm okay. I'll keep the slugs and the angry tree newt things. So
you almost said noodles.
I almost said noodles.
You almost said. Damn, you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit that out. What timestamp are we at?
Oh no, that one's staying in there. That one.
Yeah. Oh. I just remember like. I can't even remember. One of my friends just was like, "Oh man, these Calabar burrowing pythons are really cool." And I was like, "Oh, poop snake. Sorry, I can't get into it. I can't get into it."
Dreams.
I know. I'm very opinionated, Jeremy.
I know, you elitist piece of shit. Oh man. Okay, so I gotta know, Dan, how many Brettles do you have?
How many Brettles do we have? We've been downsizing a fair amount as I've been kind of refining the collection. Also, when we were doing tours, if you go through 6 aisles of Brettles, kids start to get bored.
Fair enough.
We have to diversify a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, maybe 15 or 16.
Damn.
Jeremy just got a little excited.
I did. I've got like 7 or 8 here, but yeah.
All right.
Oof. Yeah, and
you're going to send your pair on forever breeding loan?
Maybe so. Maybe so. I won't say no. But I've got like some hypo stripe stuff from Nick and some het stonewash stuff from him too. So yeah, I've got a couple of het for nothing normals also. It was literally like the pair of het stonewashed I bought from a friend who got them from Nick, and he was just getting out of pythons. He was transitioning over into boas, and I was like, let me know when you're gonna sell those things, dude. So I got them from him, and then the only reason I got any more was because we had gotten some for Nerd.
Yep.
And according to the original list, they were just normal Brettles, and I was like, oh yeah, those will sell fine in the pet store, that's whatever. And we got them in, and it was like Posset stripe, and I'm like staring at them, and I'm like, that female's gonna prove. She's got all the right markers. Mm-hmm. She's gonna prove out. I'll put money on it. Matter of fact, I'm buying this thing right now. So I bought it, and then I was like, well, now I need a striped male to prove this sucker out.
Yep.
So next thing I know, I'm on the phone with Nick, and Nick's like, oh, are you getting into Brettles? And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. He hooked me the same way, man. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll get 1 or 2, and then I've got these, giant boxes of baby hatchling carpets showing up in my door, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll sell some after I pick the ones I like. And,
Yep. Yep, exactly. He's like, listen, man, I bred like all my Brettles, and they all went, and they all had good clutches, and now I have too many Brettles. And I was like, I've never heard anybody say that, but I will gladly help you with your problems, sir, even if it's only a couple. Oh man, no, Brettles are probably one of my favorite carpets. Them and jungle stuff. Like I've really focused on the ocelot jag stuff for the jungles.
Yep.
But yeah, man, there's just something about Brettles. I remember the first time I bred them. I was away. They hatched on like a Friday night or whatever, and I was like away that next Saturday or whatever. So when I finally got back, they were all out of the egg, just in the egg box, like, oh my God, let us out. So I remember opening the lid, and they're just like shooting out, and you know, they're baby carpet pythons, so you startle them, and they're like, what the hell, and just start biting everything. You get 15 babies that are just like, I'm gonna kill this thing. And I was like, this is so awesome, but ow, stop, Scott, yeah, Brettles are cool. I appreciate some good Brettles.
Definitely. What else we got? Woomas. We were fairly successful breeding those this year.
Oh, sweet.
My she's almost 11-year-old daughter claims full success of that for deciding when to put them together and doing all that. So she's very proud of producing our Woomas this year.
That's
Hell
awesome.
yeah, that's an accomplishment. You know
Yeah,
what I was
for
doing
sure.
at 11?
Yeah.
Catching garter snakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, but they're also like we have to keep them grounded, because like when my son he's 12 now, but when he was like 7 or 8, he'd be at the reptile show, like somebody would be giving a presentation, not you, Rob, but somebody else, and he's a stickler for like accuracy.
Oh yeah.
And so they would say something like vague or not true about, like, we'll say that tegu, right? And my son would be like, hand up and correct the person. And then sometimes they don't know how to handle that very well, and so they do the whole like puff my peacock feathers and well, who's the one with the tegu? And he raises his hand. We've got 9. It's like ID proof.
Shush! Listen, different time.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
or you go to the zoo and you're like, their reptile room is smaller than yours, and the kids are like, we came all the way for this.
I feel that though,
yeah,
dude. Sometimes
same.
you go to a zoo and you get all excited about the reptile room. And you like go in there and you're like, oh, they have a Kenyan sand boa and a green anaconda. That's cool. That's cool. I've seen those before.
Yeah. Was that a painted turtle? Oh, red-eared slider.
Red-eared slider. Dude, son of a bitch.
The zoo closest to us is Southwick. We actually donated one of our Woomas to them. So now, even though it's not the biggest reptile room or whatever, we go to just check on our Wooma.
Hell yeah.
There you go. That's awesome.
See, I remember going to Southwick, and I think that they had like a retic on display, and then like 1 or 2 other things. I remember not seeing a lot of reptiles the time that I went there, but that was like 10 years ago now.
Oof. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. My local zoo didn't really have much for reptiles, and they didn't really have anybody that like knew how to take care of them. Like I remember when I was younger, they had like a junior zookeeper program, and so I had like done that, and the head of the volunteers was the woman who was like taking care of the reptiles. So like I would like sneak away to work with her in the reptile room and stuff. And but I remember when I left and time went on, they tried to upgrade things, but I remember going in and like seeing a green basilisk in like the most arid setup ever, and I look around and I'm like, what is it? This has got to be a joke. The card on the thing says they're from the rainforest. Like this, and it's in the desert. What are we doing? So I look over to the left and there's like suggestion box. Immediately grabbed the little half pencil and piece of paper and was like, you guys, what are you doing? That thing's gonna dry out in a day.
You didn't even put it in the box. You found the nearest employee. Read this
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. Fix it now. Jesus. Poor fucking thing. Damn it.
See, Franklin Park, I think they've got like an anaconda. I remember seeing like a Madagascan tree boa there, and like a Kenyan sand boa and something else. I don't even remember what other thing, but like the green anaconda was like their piece de resistance.
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Yeah, check out our anaconda," and I'm like, "I know where you got that anaconda from, motherfuckers."
I know the source.
I've held its mom.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. It's not that special. I know the lineage.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's always just interesting seeing all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So Dan, on those womas, do you tend to favor like the brighter like oranges and reds, or do you go for the darker, more earth tony looking animals?
Sure, I go for the orange as possible and light as possible coloration, and so that's what I've been breeding for and selecting for. I mean, I know people that like the like higher contrast stripes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I really like the kind of the bright orangey color, and then the kind of the lighter tannish color.
For sure. Yeah, when you get those nice bright ones, they'll catch your eye real quick.
Oh yeah,
real quick.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah. If only they weren't so food driven.
Yeah.
It's the like the non-trustable snake, right? It's like, cruising around, you're holding it, everything's happy, and then it's like, maybe your food. I'm just gonna gnaw.
Yeah. I just gotta check. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're sharks. They're just doing a test bite.
Exactly. And then then everything's fine again for a minute, and then it does it again, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah, right, exactly. Meanwhile, you're just like hoping that doesn't happen to like the fingertip or something. You're like, please go for the forearm or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me, like my kids witnessing their first like bad bite was we were at the what is it, the Wildlife Center where the Herp Society, New England Herp Society, gives their meetings, and they were downstairs, and there was like somebody was selling somebody else their adult pair of Wumas, and these were like, I think I have big Wumas, these were big Wumas, right next to the guys that were like selling the frozen rodents.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. And my kids, like, at this point they're like, 5 and 7 or something, little, and they are taking out this Wuma, and my kids are like, that's not a good idea. Like, they're telling these people that this is not a good idea, and then the guy's like, oh no, this is my Wuma, it's the sweetest thing, I've never been bit before in my life, whatever. Crunch, and blood, and you get the credit card out to get the teeth out. It was just like a mess, and my kids were like, I told you.
We saw that coming. I just want to go on record and say we saw that coming.
Exactly. So it was what not to do with a Wuma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that'll be a story for their kids in the future. Listen, I called him out.
I'm
telling you, I let him know it was a bad idea. He didn't want to listen to
no one listens to the kids,
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Woma pythons.
So, Dan, not just that, you're also working on a project like that's more on the computer side of things, but it still has to do with reptiles. So you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, when I'm not in the reptile building, I'm on the computer tinkering on this or that, and I find that there's not enough science when it comes to keeping as far as reptiles go, right? Like, people oftentimes, the care guide says 72 degrees or 89 degrees, and you're like, is that hot? Is that hot side, cold side, ambient, basking? Like, what does that mean? And that's the one time that guy checked before he wrote his care guide or something, right?
Yeah.
And the person that's successful, that this, like, maybe this species, nobody else is successful, and this guy just has it in his basement, and because of where he lives, the ambient changes over the seasons, and we just don't have that data, right? And so I'm working on is an environmental and monitoring system, essentially, that you stick in your cage on a couple of the corners, and it tracks temperature, humidity, light, and a few other measurements depending on what model you're looking at. And this all feeds into kind of the graphs and the charts that you're able to see. And ideally, the software that I'm working on, you can check an anonymous box that says, hey, share my data, and this is the species. And so the goal is to aggregate this data and say, hey, successful keepers, this is the range that they've got, the humidity, the temperature, this is how it fluctuates over the years, and be able to kind of collect that data and really help drive improvements to keeping. And my biggest thing is, the reptile community is not, they oftentimes don't like to spend a lot of money on technology or on cages, right? Like, where do you get most of your cages? Craigslist or the fish aquarium that's kind of on the side of the street or whatever. So trying to get the price down to a very small amount so that it would be a kind of a no-brainer to stick in your snake racks or put in your enclosures so that it's in a lot of places so that we get a lot of data and it's actually useful. If I said this was going to be $1,000 device, I'd be the only one running it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I'm working on right now. We're kind of doing field tests in our facility, primarily around battery life, right? Like I want to make them as inexpensive as possible, and nobody likes changing a bunch of batteries all the time, but I also wanted to be in places that running wires to might be less effective or pain in the butt. So I'm kind of trying to tune it so that the batteries last somewhere around a year. And so that's what we're shooting for. And yeah, so that's what we're working on. I've got a bunch of these little modules, little devices, 3D printing cases for them. They're just little square boxes right now, but we'll get something fancier if it all works out. But yeah, so that's kind of one of my side projects is getting all the data so that we can all get better at what we love doing.
That's pretty badass, man.
Yeah.
And so you said it's even something that can be utilized in snake racks, not just like larger enclosures.
Yes, exactly. So the devices can have one of the devices I have can have up to 6 or 8 probes on it. So think about like you stick this in each tub, in each slots in the rack, whatever, and then it aggregates that data for you over time. And then also, I'm not going to put a guarantee on it because I don't want to be the person. This is why I don't want to do thermostats because I don't want to have somebody's animal's life in my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will have alerting and monitoring so that if it goes above or below a certain threshold, it could beep your phone or whatever. So that a lot of these thermostats, if it's like a tree falls in the wood, right? If it's beeping an emergency in your rack and you're at work or somewhere else, you don't know that until it's too late.
Yeah.
So this would be an extra layer of awareness as far as when things are not the way they should be.
That's super cool, and yeah, that certainly is a fair point. Yeah, if a thermostat beeps in the snake room and no one's home to hear it, does it even matter?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not really alarming anything. It's alarming an empty room or like a room where no one can help.
It's alarming those few animals you might have that have ears.
Yes.
That don't understand what the hell is happening.
It's insult to injury at that point, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Much.
Exactly. Oh man. No, dude, I think that's super cool. I'm excited to see what your field tests at your place kind of allow you to figure out and tweak and make it even better.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure we'll send you guys some to put in with some monitors and some rougher environments so that we get some good field testing up there. And then what is it? Keith always comes to mind with all the Boleyn's python, all the cool experiments he's doing. So like, he's a data guy. I think he would appreciate this type of thing. And then just coming up with other, harder to breed species that would kind of benefit from this extra data collection. And another ask is almost like. I don't know if you guys remember that, like one laptop, one child or whatever. Like if you buy one of these laptops, this one goes somewhere, right? I kind of want to talk talk to zoos and other kind of places where they might not have the budget to buy these things, but if I can get them in there and they, quote unquote, I'll use geek term, but open source their data, like, hey, send this data to the cloud so that everybody else can see what you're doing with species that are hard to reproduce. Would you guys is that a good compromise, right? Share your data and you get these devices for free. So. Right.
Yeah, I think that could certainly be helpful, especially as zoos, especially with those zoos that are working with a lot of different species like Boelen's pythons or any of those harder to breed species. Compare and contrast, especially if you're talking about zoos that are ultimately trying to do the same thing with some of those species but are on totally opposite sides of the country. So their barometric pressure shifts and everything are quite different, happening at different rates and times and stuff. So yeah, I think that could prove to be an invaluable tool as we are still trying to learn so much about some of these different species that aren't as well known or well documented in the industry.
For sure. The other one is like to Rob's extent of when somebody brings in a leopard gecko or a ball python to the stop, right? Like if you're like, oh, let me pull up your temp chart, right? And you're like, oh, well, your temps are too low, or hey, did you know that at night when your AC kicks on and the heat lamp's off, you're freezing these things out, but you don't know that because you're sleeping, right? Like those conversations are I think are empowering, right? And so I think the more data we have, everybody's lives is better.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really, really good point. So it certainly sounds like you have some massive ideas for the project to get to the masses of the industry, and I think that's absolutely wonderful, especially as it's quite obvious that the industry is certainly moving forward in the desire to better herpetoculture.
Yeah.
Just kind of in general, being able to keep better records of what you're doing and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that will fit right in all of that. So that's that's freaking awesome.
Thanks, appreciate that.
That just makes me think of Steve Tillis and the data collection that he's been doing with Eugene Bissett, where he's been kind of monitoring and recording data for reproduction in Eugene Bissett's collection, and looking at the data trends of breeding, when these females are breeding, when they're cycling, how many eggs they're producing, what years they're producing, and all sorts of stuff. And as you collect that data, you're able to make not assumptions, but you're able to make projections of what theoretically what kind of cycles things go in. Yeah. And that sort of stuff, if you don't have the data collected, it doesn't help anyone. If you don't have it organized in any sort of way, it's not helpful. But with those, with the things you're talking about, it could be incredibly helpful for people who are already doing these things to help better the way that other people are doing it. If people are just trying to get into it and just trying to get a handle on it.
Yeah, for 100%. Sure.
That makes me want to put you and Steve together and just be like, yeah, data, all the data,
all so the data, much data.
Or is it data?
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool, man. What's funny is after we did that trip and talked with Steve and saw how he was implementing that at Eugene's place, it still resonates. Just those concepts still resonate with me very much, and just being able to track that and give yourself a better flow and conceptualize what your future is, both for your knowledge as the keeper of the animals, but also if you're in it for business, being able to make those projections is massive, and I think it's safe to say we all know that this industry is not easy to project and make assumptions about as far as what people will want or what's going to be popular the upcoming year. But, if you're working on a certain thing, a large portion of that system that Steve did was really focused on the ball pythons, because that's what Eugene produces a lot of. And at that, for him, because he doesn't deal with the public for the most part, he's wholesaling to other companies and stuff like that. So he needs to know, whatever's going to be the most popular, how can he generate more of those offspring? So those numbers really help in that moving forward. And like when Steve said, it will help us pick our holdbacks.
Yeah,
I
the
was
system,
like,
he's like, in
what?
a year and a half, the system should be able to pick out our holdbacks from our clutches so we don't have to.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yep.
oh my god, that's insane.
Yeah. Data!
Yeah. And he's like, you could go around just breeding things with no direction or no purpose, but if you've got a purpose or if you've got a direction, the data and the numbers can help guide you to the best, the best use of all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And it would be interesting to see, Dan, your concept for the environmental monitoring system in a situation like Eugene's, where because even Steve was saying certain racks in the facility will cycle very similar time and go through. So to be able to isolate that, why does that rack? Is it something that's happening temperature wise or humidity or what's going on in that rack? And then if you altered that in another rack in a different part of the building, would it then jump on that cycle, or would it would it mess that up? So I think that could be an interesting hybrid.
For sure. So early on, maybe a few years back, you'll see reptile inventory and some legacy mentions of me or whatever. I had built an inventory system that was you type in the weights and you type in the feedings and you type in the sheddings and track all that data. Maybe it was ahead of its time, maybe whatever, but the major majority of people don't take that time, right? They don't I don't know if it's not care enough, they don't find the value in that data. It's just having to manually boop, 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 put something in. Even if you make it easy with scanning, there's a couple of nice scanning apps out there now. So many people just don't put in that effort, and so I went the environmental monitoring direction now because they don't then have to put any input, right? They just kind of stick it in their cage and all the data comes for free for them. That's kind of the angle that I've gone. And so I would be more than happy to work with those guys to kind of plug in environmental data into their system if they don't already have it. But it's just I would say, the unicorn or the exception to the rule for so many that are not as organized or don't take the time to collect that data. Some people will write it on cards on the front of the cage or tape or whatever at a bare minimum. But even that, you'd be surprised how many collections you go to, and the amount of data is all in the person's head, and that's about it. You're not gonna run any big data analysis on that.
Yeah. This guy. It's up the street from here. His name starts with a K. He's really good at keeping information in his head. You've probably heard of him, man. I think you know exactly what.
But it was crazy because when we went to Eugene Bissette's, he literally had data going back to, what was it,
the 80s?
1986 or something.
I think so, yeah.
Where he's like, I just started recording everything. When I was doing my feedings, when I would weigh things periodically, when they were laying clutches, this. And he's like, I kept meticulous data from 1986 up until now.
Yeah.
And that amount of data is incredibly valuable to his business model now.
Yeah, exactly. And and the model the method that Steve had created, they only inputted 4 years of that data, and then they were able to already kind of see the trends that they needed. But it would be interesting to see if they input all of the data from decades prior
to see if there's
bigger what trends, shifts. Yeah, some bigger trends that could be there. If there were years that production just slumped for one reason or another, what was going on at that time. So it'd be really interesting to see that. That's also a lot of data to input into a system.
Yeah.
You probably need to hire somebody just for that.
TaskRabbit.
Right. But it's very interesting to think about, and I know myself included, I tend to keep a lot of information in my head until I want to explode. And then I find myself writing it down somewhere, and I'm like, I should have just done this when it was happening, and blah blah blah. But when you start to see those trends and map it out, like I feel like it would, especially for those of us that keep larger collections, allow us to adjust and make certain decisions faster. Just having access to, you know, a simple graph or chart on how, you know, temperatures are being maintained, or, you know, whatever tweaks, you know, because like I think about, you know, my reptile room now, having to move it to 2 different locations in this place, and how much it like messed with my breeding season and stuff like that, and how long it took me to tweak that room. It'd be interesting with like a system like Dan's to have been able to see, okay, maybe within a, you know, just even within a month, okay, well, what's happening now?
Yes.
You know, what's going on this month compared to last month when it was in the other location? How can I tweak it? What do I need to do? You know, so I didn't get clutches of slugs from carpet pythons.
It was a tough year, Jeremy.
It
okay?
was. I'm crying still, but it's okay.
So, did you ever do a lot of field herping, or are you more of like just a care and keeping guy? I think I've seen you field herp a little bit.
Sure. So I am not a big hot weather guy, so I'm not like going out on expeditions or going to the desert or anything like that. But you know, we'll go to the old mill and grab some water snakes with the kids, or you know, we'll go for the occasional hike through the woods around here and flip boards and logs and stuff. I too occasionally get calls from fish. What is it? Not Fish and Wild, but the essentially the wildlife control officer around here.
Yeah.
I'll get calls. So like a couple weeks back, I got a call and there was a you know, an 8+ foot snake that is going through this yard, and some gardeners saw it, and you know, they freaked out. They called this person. That person called some rescue, and the rescue does only owls and hawks, and so they're like, holy mackerel, who do we call? And somehow they got my number, and so then they're like, it's in this neighborhood. We think it's around these rocks. Good luck. And so you know, I grab my son and a couple of snake hooks, and we go out there, and it looked like there was some disturbed dirt under this one rock, and so I'm you know, poking around in there, flashlight, I can't see anything. My son's like, you know, we're there 10-15 minutes, and he's like, give up already, we're not gonna find it. And I finally spooked it out of this hole that I had, you know, I determined that it was in there. I was not going to give up until I found it, and it just came shooting out, and it was a little like 2.5 foot California king snake.
Whoa!
And so I'm like, I wasn't expecting that, but
Yeah, right.
definitely not the, you know, the 8 foot that giant that I was expecting. Although, you know, you guys do the retakes that 8 foot is not giant. So, you know, we you know, saved the day by rescuing this little snake. So that's kind of, we get those kind of exciting calls. Yeah, in our building, I have I'll say a 10-foot rule. I try to keep the species I keep below 10 feet because that's the what I feel comfortable. If I had a bad day, or the animal I was working with had a bad day, I feel like a 10-foot snake is a bad day for anybody if it's a bad day.
Yeah.
But if I'm alone in there, then that's kind of my limit.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I appreciate that.
Yeah, seriously. 10-foot snake. That's a...
Yeah. Yeah, that'll put a hurting on you.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little. That's all.
And then, in the midst of the 10-foot snake, here is the 3-foot Woma.
Yeah, slam! Constricting your arm. You're like, what? It doesn't smell like food.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it feels like food.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would take the 10-foot, you know, Brettles or the blackhead or whatever over the king rat, which will, like, you know, musk you and bite you 3 times before you even notice.
Yeah.
What's happening.
Exactly. I still tell people to this day, man, like, I'll take the bite every day over the musk, and the piss and crap, and like, what? At least that stuff washes off. It's like, but that smell It
Oh,
lingers.
It lingers.
At least the blood, you wipe it away, you put some pressure on it, you're good to go. You enjoy your day. You can hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
You get musked on. Nobody wants to be near you.
You wash your hands with floral dish soap, and now you smell like someone shit in a flower bed. It's just as bad, if not worse. It's just like, wow, I wish that I hadn't laid down in this bed of flowers that someone pooped in. This is terrible.
Oh, boy.
What? Don't look at me like that.
Oh, boy. Oh, man.
Hey, man, it is what it is. Nerodia musk is a different kind of beast.
That is very true. Oof.
I don't know if there's anything that takes water snake musk off of your hands.
I don't think
You
so.
gotta use like sulfuric acid. You gotta do like a 1 second dip in sulfuric.
Yeah, oof. Just enough to burn the epidermis.
Yeah, just enough
And then-
to burn your fingerprints off. That's
Yeah.
all you need.
That's all you need. Then you're smelling like burnt flesh, but it's not musk.
But it's not.
It's not musk. Oh, man. All right, so we are reaching that time where we're going to wrap this up. But before we do, we ask everybody one final question, and that question is, what in the realm of reptile, be it in your own collection, something that you've seen scrolling online, because that's all we do now thanks to COVID, what in the realm of reptile has you excited?
What has in the so I think luckily we talked most of the call about it, right? It's the well, I'll fork and cheat and get two answers out of it, but because we talked about data, right? Like doing science and doing more with the data we can collect, so that's exciting. The other one is the whole like quote unquote bioactive trend, right? Like I feel like my European buddies are like, so you mean keeping?
Yeah, keeping around that.
Right, and so having people, get away from these like sterile enclosures, and if you look at some of my cages enclosures, I'm just as bad with the paper towels and some of the snakes, but we're definitely with COVID. I've got more time, and so we're upgrading and switching a bunch of ours over to real keeping, we'll say, and trying to kind of enrich the animals' minds and give them a more exciting and interesting environment. And so I think that becoming a little bit more mainstream is exciting to me, that we're kind of getting to that point where I think European keepers and others have been doing it forever.
Hell
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point. We're a little behind on that in that realm.
All right, man. So if people want to find out more about you and the things that you're doing, where should they look out for you?
Yeah, sure. So Rowe Reptiles, ROWE Reptiles, are on Facebook. So that's where my personal collection. We didn't talk about it. I'm currently the president of the New England Herp Society. So
That's
if you're
right.
in New England, we definitely want you to check us out there. We're doing virtual meetings once a month at this point, so you can come check out whoever's giving our talk online. But sign up for us, and then you can find me at almost any USARK auction, spending way too much on plates of cookies. So that, and when I'm not talking to you guys, I'm super introverted. So if you see me at an expo, come up to me, talk to me, say hi. I won't remember your name because I'm focusing on if I can actually still shake hands while I'm freaking out. So say hi, talk to me. I would appreciate it.
Most definitely. All right, man.
Good
so thank you
stuff,
very much
dude.
for coming on tonight. We appreciate it a lot, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
All right, have a good one. Thanks again.
All right, yes, sir.